Satya Dhamma Reflection on May 28, 2022. Spread out the awakening in the way that it doesn't grasp itself. No grasping, even the non-grasping itself. Absolute opening. This is not just about senses and sense perceptions, child. No grasping, even the non-grasping itself. Absolute opening. It has nothing to do with senses and sense perceptions automatically. Then it will be true purification of the emptiness. Disregard from the disregard itself. It is not itself. Non-attachment is not itself. No is not no itself. Continuously discarding whatever is that is the seed of the Samudhaya, which is clinging in whatever types of opinions or any states of mind. Discard the discard itself. The principle is not the way. Discard the discard itself. Disregard is not the disregard itself. Non-attachment is not itself. No is not no itself. This will release from titi, from seeing and knowing, from deluded knowing and not knowing. Releasing from titi, from maintaining of the seeing. Non-attachment is not itself. No is not no itself. Then it will not be about grasping, whether it is yes, no, disregard or not. This is purification for the Samudhaya, for the grasping, simultaneously within and without. It's not about grasping senses and sense perceptions simultaneously. Disregard is not itself. Purify the overlaying of the internal within knowing, seeing, and maintaining of stillness and indifference, using the knowing and seeing and being still in it. So purify such a condition. No is not no itself. Then continuously it will discard such a rejection. There will not be an overlaying of the internal and external. Normally, there is no disregarding, always significance and meanings, even a tiny bit. The stillness is not disregarding. Having significance and meanings, which is still short. However, there is the mind in it. There is the mind that overlays. So that which is not non-attachment, it has nothing to do with stillness or not, indifferent or not. That is not becoming realm of existence or samsara, or cycle of becoming. Disregard from the disregard itself. The disregard doesn't grasp itself. Nothing is within the disregard itself. Retreat from the retreat itself. Unwind from the unwind itself. Whether the proceeding that is in the way with projection is Samudhaya. Retreat from the retreat itself, disregard from the disregard itself. The disregard is not relevant to itself. Release out. Release from the release itself. Discarding the release itself. That's the essence. Uninvolved with the disregard. It will have nothing to do with releasing or not. However, it has effect in releasing from all assumed Dhamma, mindfulness, concentration, contemplation, and all that, which creates realm of existence within the mind and within Dhamma. Using Dhamma as a realm, owning by oneself or not? Actually not. It is taking on the fixation to Dhamma. The disregard is not itself. That's it. The delusive attachment cannot proceed further. The delusive attachment is dissolved by itself. That misleading as oneself actually doesn't exist. It's just the delusive attachment that persisting stubbornly, fixated stubbornly. Disregard has nothing to do with itself. Actually, the karmic habit is quite deep. Therefore, there must be a reminder that purifies itself more constantly. Within such a sentence of the essence, once one recalls it, there is already a purification in itself. This indicates that the stillness that is ongoing or indifference that is ongoing is not the way. No is not no itself. This will end all grasping that overlays all conditions and states of mind, overlaying the aggregates and assumed Dhamma, so that all the assumed can be bygone. No is not no is itself. No is not even no itself. Purify the assumed, not letting it, the assumed things becoming the leftover of trash, of the karmic difficulties. Without managing all the trashes, assume only the trash, creating only trashes without dissolving them. They are left over in samsara. Even you are the Arahant, but you have left the trash within samsara so much, because the Arahant is only at the present, therefore bless well. Proceed on with that which is not about attachment or non-attachment, so that it will purify all the karmic difficulties that overlay within samsara. the assumed doesn't purify itself, then there will be leftover of such a trash. You can be the Arhan at the present, but the leftover of trashes of your karmic difficulties still remains, because there are a lot of karmic connections. Therefore, diligently purify samsara. Disregard from the disregard itself. Don't be stuck with just disregarding. No, it's not even no itself. Don't be stuck with just yes and no, because that is realm of existence. No is not no itself. This will be true purification of Nirodha, or the extinction. Every step purify. Purify all assumed conditions. Uninvolved within the uninvolved itself. The uninvolved is not itself. It doesn't grasp itself. Uninvolved within the involvement and the uninvolvement. Uninvolved even within the uninvolved itself, which is overlaying or the origin of knowing, seeing. It will purify everything uninvolved within the uninvolved itself. It will purify the samudhaya overlaying the knowing and seeing, or not knowing, not seeing, because this creates cycle of samsara. The knower itself is the origin, together with the seer. That which is not even the know itself will purify the overlaying of the knowing and the seeing. Disregard, even from the disregard itself, will purify the samudhaya that overlaying the seeing and the knowing. This is the origin of the arising. Where is the origin of the arising? It is within the knower. Consciousness, knower, knowing, or the acknowledgement itself through senses and sense perceptions, receiving, acknowledging emotions, feelings, vedana, and all that. Acknowledgement inside and outside. All these feelings, acknowledgement is itself consciousness. It's called consciousness. It's the origin of the arising. Therefore, the knower is not the practice. The consciousness is not to be practiced. It's anicca in itself. Disregard, even from the disregard itself, will purify the overlaying of the knowing, which is gonna create further within all other conditions and attributes of the mind. Cutting the knowing, cutting the knower itself, enlightenment, cut through the overlaying of seeing and knowing. The essence will seize the overlaying in the knower and seer continuously, which will continue to overlay vedana, emotions, thoughts, recalls, opinions and meanings, overlaying senses and sense perceptions, which is by the knower itself. First, it begins in the knowing, and the samudhaya within knowing will spread out to circle within cycle of samsara furthermore. This is called letting go of the knowing and not knowing, vichya and avicca. It's impossible to let go of the knowing and not knowing. It has to let go of the let go itself, because the letting go itself is overlaying. Has to let go of the let go itself. How is it? Disregard even from the disregard itself. Don't be obsessed to use disregard to disregard something. Uninvolved within the uninvolved itself. Don't be obsessed to use uninvolved to uninvolved with anything. In the same way, don't use the letting go to let go of anything. Let go of the let go itself. Don't be obsessed to cut anything. Cut through the cutting itself. It's in the same pattern. Then it will see the samudhaya overlaying knowing and not knowing. Then it will not become samsara. Even the arahants, they have to continue to purify samsara. Because whatever that has left over in the samsara, they are the trash of karmic difficulties of assumed things. They have never been purified. The assumed never been purified. All the projection and obligation has been impressed within samsara, and is the leftover there, or leftover within any beings. It's become like clashes without purifying. To see samudhaya is to see the samudhaya at present, but the past not yet done. So when it's assumed, it has to be in the way of continuation of purification. If body mind is formed up again, then they will have to face their own past karmic difficulties, because it's gonna return back again and again to oneself. This is vibhak, karmic difficulties, karmic retributions. Therefore, right now, there is no need to distinguish or separate anything. Continue to purify disregard from the disregard itself. Continuously. Karmic difficulties within Dharma, all types of that. The assumed Dharma has been assumed by oneself. Dharma is not Dharma, it's meaningless in itself, as it is, but it's been deludedly formed up and then fixated to such assumed Dhamma. This is against the essence of enlightenment of Buddhas, Anatta Dhamma, which has no substantial within itself. So why being obsessed to give significance and meanings to Dhamma? Dhamma is not substantial in itself. No substantial within Dhamma itself. Why being obsessed to involve with Dhamma on and on? That is the samudhaya itself, the cause itself. Disregard that is not itself. Disregard that is not relevant to itself. Uninvolved with the disregard itself. Remind oneself in the way that will purify and cut through within the reminder itself, purifying the reminder itself. Therefore, that which is mentioned, help to purify, help one another to unwind, and that's all there is. If not reminding oneself of the essence, there will not be the brightness of the liberation of suffering to help samsara. Each sentence of deliberate cut through, the sentence that is deliberate cut through within itself. Walking in the way that is being carried away, that doesn't work. As usual, it doesn't work. It's not helpful. Every step. So diligently remind oneself, which is cutting through itself constantly, which is the brightness that is shining through for samsara and oneself continuously, simultaneously. No is not know itself. Otherwise, the knower will just be preoccupied within itself. The disregard is not itself constantly. This will purify the assumed seer and knower, or the assumed mind for utilizing it. Whatever that is assumed will be purified simultaneously. Those feelings we call all types of characteristics that is assumed up. Use the disregard, even from the disregard itself, to purify it. Uninvolved, even within the uninvolved itself, this will come down to terms with purification of Nirodha. If unable to purify the knower, then the knower will be a problem. It becomes ailments within the knower itself, the seer itself. Without unable to purify, the knower will become like ailments within itself. Involved within the involved itself. Knower that has nothing to do with itself, just uninvolved with the overlay. Don't talk much with knower, because it will flow into the system of Samudhaya, Vichya, Avijja. Purify self-purification within the sentence that is mentioned. Don't let it become a meaning without purification simultaneously, because it's going to have meaning in itself. That is the Samudhaya. Within aggregates cannot talk much about it. Disregard from the disregard itself, Samudhaya purifies itself right away. Don't focus on any certain thing at all. Disregard is not itself as such. Even you have a lot of doubt and criticizing, you still purify such a way. หลวงพ่ออนุโมทนา to this monk. Continue to bless through ending. You cannot take anything much into account. Disregard from the disregard itself. Self-purification right away simultaneously. Don't let it become samudhaya, because the meanings become samudhaya within itself. Disregard is not itself. Purify within itself. Self-purification. Disregard purifies itself. Assume purifies itself. Terminologies purify themselves as such. Without purification, it will be drowning within all the grasping Dhamma. Because mindfulness and concentration, contemplation, special insight, all types of states of Dhamma is the assumed Dhamma. and one will be deludedly drowned within stillness and indifference on and on. Without purification, it will become lengthy realm of existence. No is not no itself. This is self-purification within terminologies. It will not become Samudhaya furthermore. Otherwise, one will have the same old habit, always patching up, adding up, further and further and further. This is the habit of knowing, always patching up, always adding more. This is the origin, starting within the knowing, which is patching up furthermore, on and on. Disregard is not itself. This is cutting through the cutter itself, from the origin. Cut through the cutter itself. Disregard from the disregard itself. This is the disregard cut through itself, seizing the Samudhaya, which is the origin. Not yet becoming avijja or vicha, not becoming titi or whatever, not yet becoming knowing or not knowing, on and on, further and further. Ceasing first. Disregard from the disregard itself, disregard ceasing itself. This is cutting through the cutting itself. This is called seizing the Samudhaya, helping to seize the Samudhaya altogether. Talking a lot without purification in them. This is diligently form them up without purification in all those sentences. They are full of treasures. Treasures of titi. Treasures of wisdom and intelligence. Disregard is not itself, don't let it become too long. This is not about length or short. Live with disregard is not itself to purify the overlaying the knower. This is creating the vulnerability. The disregard is not itself. This will have nothing to do with knowing or not knowing right away. Then we will have nothing to do with taking on the vibhak or not, which is the overlay. It will turn into purification through the extinction and the emptiness instead. When there are a lot of knower, significance and meaning and involvement in the knower, we're taking on the vibhak. Let's purify the reminder itself. No is not no itself. The reminder that purifies itself and cuts through itself. It's not the disregard itself. Even the short is not the way. Why having anything too much within the mind for so long? Too much education, it becomes like buffalo and cows. No need to have too many sentences. This creates horns. In the education itself, no need to try to have education to the end, because it won't end the education, it just continue endlessly. This is a delusion to form it up, because the knower will just continue deludedly in itself, endless. No is not no itself. In the education, in the practice, in all that, trying to get the result from the education, from the practice. no self within the knowledge, no self within the effect of the knowledge. Nothing is within such a system of knowledge, practice, and effect of practice. No is not even know itself. Then it will end all about educator. The anatta is not the anatta itself. The anicca is not the anicca itself, meaningless in itself. No is not know itself. Well with it. Disregard is not itself. Disregard even from the disregard itself. And within no time, nothing is within the length of the short. The samudaya in the short is the samudaya within the conditions of the mind, within stillness, indifference, within anything whatsoever that is short or length. This is the samudaya, the obsession with significance and meanings and involvement, even within the non-attachment. Non-attached to the non-attachment itself. The anatta is meaningless in itself. The anicca is meaningless in itself. Otherwise, it's going to be just a delusion within anicca and anatta, on and on. This is the titi, giving opinions and meanings to the anicca, dukkha, anatta, on and on. The anicca is not even the anicca itself. The anatta is not even the anatta itself, child. No is not even the no itself. So don't be obsessed to use no to know with anything in the way of rejecting this and that, on and on. No is not even no itself. Let's purify without traces, without boundaries only. Absolute compassion and great compassion. You need really compassion and great compassion, absolute, because you have already given such a dharma. So you need to have compassion and great compassion for samsara, like absolutely. So it has to be beyond giving opinions and meanings to nibbana. Let's purify titi well to purify titi. Samsara is not samsara themselves. Nibbana is not nibbana itself. Both is derived from the titi, which is bound, which is assumed and bound in opinions and meanings. It's the karmic difficulties in itself. Feeling that, thinking that. This is bound by titi of the vibhak of titi. So let's continue to purify, to help samsara onwards through the purification of extinction and emptiness. Disregard, even from the disregard itself, child. Don't make a confusion by using the disregard to disregard something. The disregard is not itself. Disregard even from the disregard itself. Don't be obsessed to linger with the disregard until it's become samsara in letting go, in attempting to let go or attempting to cut through the cutting itself. Disregard even from the disregard itself, self-purification, self-cutting. Breathing in, breathing out is at all time, whether you're sleeping or waking up. So continue onwards with the essence and share it. Nothing is within the envelope itself. Continue to make a conclusion to purify onwards. Otherwise, the samudhaya will just be lengthy. Significance and meanings within stillness and indifference, and in anything whatsoever, that is the lengthy samudhaya. Disregard is not itself continuously, child. Whatever that is taking into account even a tiny bit, it becomes realm of existence totally. Disregard even from the disregard itself continuously. The disregard is not itself. Otherwise, you'll be near but you are far. The disregard is not itself. Disregard is not itself, child. Simultaneously with everything.